welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here. Today, we're diving straight into a profoundly moving piece of ancient Indian literature. It's a story that tackles a conflict we honestly still see echoing in various forms all over the world today, which is the battle between a societal hierarchy based purely on birth and the actual true content of a person's character. We are going to break down this incredible source text to understand exactly how a young boy and a wise sage completely dismantled the social structures of their time. So think about this for a second. Does birth make someone great, or does truth? I really want you to keep this front and center in your mind as we go through today's explainer. Now, it's pretty easy to say truth in a modern context, right? But imagine living in a society where your entire future, your education, and your fundamental worth were rigidly, unquestionably dictated by the family you happen to be born into. Okay, let's dive into this and see how our source text tackles this exact dilemma.
Chapter 1, The Search for Knowledge or Gyan Ki Khoj. Let's kick off our chronological journey right here.
Our source text opens by painting this incredibly serene picture. It describes a golden evening where sunlight is scattered, literally like gold, across the tranquil ashram, a spiritual hermitage, of the highly revered sage Gautam. The text notes that, after the endless grind of worldly affairs, the soul requires a special kind of peace. Even the sun, after doing its duty all day, is setting to rest. In this perfectly peaceful environment, students are sitting near the guru's feet, quietly reciting their lessons. It's just a picture of perfect harmony and established order. Which brings us to Chapter 2, the question of Varna, or Varna ka Prashna. And this is exactly where that established order gets abruptly challenged. Right into this exclusive, golden setting walks an unknown boy. The text tells us he walks up to the guru, bows deeply at his feet in a traditional sign of immense respect, and humbly asks for the gift of education. He is completely naive, eager, and driven by just a pure desire to learn. But, as you might guess, in this society, desire and respect aren't quite enough to gain entry. Now, what's really fascinating is how the text breaks down the massive barrier this boy has just walked into. The guru blesses the boy, but immediately asks him, "Child, what is your Varna?" According to the source, education was entirely tied to your social class, or Varna. You didn't just get to learn whatever you wanted. Different classes received different types of knowledge, and the ultimate highest spiritual education, known as Brahmavidya, was strictly, unconditionally reserved for the Brahmins, the absolute highest class. The guru isn't necessarily trying to be cruel here. He's simply operating within the strict laws of his society. He needs to know the boy's lineage to know if he's even legally allowed to teach him. The boy, who we later find out is named Satyakam, responds with just absolute innocence. He bows his head and says, "Lord, I do not know my Varna. I will go ask my mother and return." He has no pretense, no crafted backstory, and frankly, no understanding of the heavy political weight of the guru's question. He simply doesn't know, and he promises to go find out the truth. And that pure innocence leads us into a starkly different environment in Chapter 3, The Mother's Bitter Truth. Maa ka kadwa sach. So the text describes the boy crossing a river to get back to his hut. Inside, there's just a single, dimly lit lamp flickering. His mother is sitting there, anxious and waiting for him. When she finally sees him, her worry initially turns to joy. But that joy is instantly shattered when her son repeats the guru's question. "Mother, what is my Varna? Who is my father?" The text notes that the moment she hears this, the mother's eyes lower to the earth in deep, deep shame. She gives him an answer that is just brutally, devastatingly honest. She tells him in a low voice, "Son, I have spent my life in terrible poverty. In my youth, just to fill my stomach, I had to serve many men. I have you in my lap, but I have no husband." Think about the sheer weight of this reality for a second. Think about how easily a mother in her incredibly desperate position could have just lied. She could have made up a noble lineage to secure her son's future at the ashram, to give him a chance at a life so much better than her own. But instead, she offers him the unvarnished, heartbreaking truth of her survival. It is a massive burden to place on a young boy who literally just wants to go to school. Armed with this incredibly heavy truth, the boy now has to face the world. Chapter 4, Opposition of Society. Samaj ka Virod. Let's see how this tension builds as the next morning rolls around. The text beautifully contrasts human conflict with the absolute steadfastness of nature. The sun rises, doing its duty, without fail. The mountains and forests light up with the morning rays. The ashram wakes up, and the sound of Vedic chants fills the air. Nature does its duty completely without prejudice, and young Satyakam arrives to do his. He stands silently at the guru's feet. The guru looks at him and asks, "Did you find out? What is your varna?" And incredibly, knowing full well that this knowledge is highly restricted, knowing that he is standing right in the middle of an elite institution, Satyakam repeats his mother's exact, humiliating words. He doesn't soften the blow at all. He tells the guru and all the surrounding students that his mother spent her youth serving many men out of deep poverty, and that she has no husband. He puts his entire future and his dignity completely on the line for the truth. And this moment brilliantly illustrates the divide between ordinary prejudice and actual wisdom. On one side, look at the students' reaction. The text literally says they started buzzing with anger like a hive of disturbed wasps. The source material explicitly points out that these students were totally ignorant of true dharma, true righteous duty. They were judging the boy purely based on his lack of a family name and birth status. But on the other side, look at sage Gautam. The text calls him a drashta, a true visionary. He completely tunes out the murmurs of his prejudiced students. He looks right past the societal labels and sees only the boy's unshakable, rock-solid commitment to the truth. Which brings us right to the absolute climax of our explainer, Chapter 5, Truth is Greatness. Satya hi Shreshtata hai. So the guru processes what just happened through this profoundly logical and empathetic lens. He realizes that this kid just exposed his most vulnerable flaws and his family's deepest trauma to a crowd of elite strangers without even a second of hesitation. The boy remained completely unfazed by the very real threat of public insult. He stood firm on the truth, even though it practically guaranteed he was going to lose his chance at an education. The guru concludes that someone who possesses this level of absolute integrity cannot possibly be considered low. By arriving at this conclusion, the guru essentially tears down and redefines the entire concept of social hierarchy in his world. He defines true nobility, or in the context of this text, what it genuinely means to be a Brahmin, not as a status you just inherit by the sheer luck of birth, but as a state of character. It's defined by an absolute, fearless adherence to the truth, regardless of the personal cost. In a moment of just ultimate validation, Saj Gautam actually rises from his seat, opens his arms, and embraces the young boy. He declares in front of absolutely everyone, "Child Satyakam, you are greater than the Brahmins." It's an incredibly powerful scene where the true wisdom of the teacher meets the purity of the student, completely overriding all the prejudiced rules of the society around them. We're wrapping up our journey through this text, but I really want to leave you with a final thought to take away today. How do you judge the people in your own life? Do you judge them by the circumstances of their background, where they come from, who their parents are, what they inherited? Or do you judge them by the absolute truth of their character? It's a question Sage Gautam answered thousands of years ago, and it's one we absolutely must still answer for ourselves today. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.